State's most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 5 a.m. I'm Tanya Bach. Coming up this half hour, Pitt State and Missouri Southern face off this weekend on the basketball court. We'll have a preview. And following Wednesday's riot on Capitol Hill, some lawmakers are calling for the removal of President Trump from office. For our Something to Talk About this morning, we're asking whether or not you think the president should be held responsible. You can also chime in our Insta poll on KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. But first, a check on your forecast.
Thank you, Tanya. Good morning, everybody. Nick here in for Michael Hayslip once again with another day off that he can savor and enjoy. And he'll have a quiet day to enjoy as the rest of us will just get our workday started with cloudy skies up top of Freeman Health System. This time around, though, we're not going to be dealing with any dicey weather. No rain. No snow, nothing in between on the Skywatch Storm Tracker radar network, all because our last storm system finally moved deep into the Tennessee Valley. In fact, I think it wouldn't be surprising if parts of Mississippi and Alabama, places that usually don't see snow, wakes up with some of that stuff this morning. Around here, we're keeping things quiet and dry as our weekend finally gets going today. It's not a cold start, though. Most of us in the lower 30s at the top of the 5 o'clock hour. So kids, if you're getting up bright and early this morning, it's going to be another cold start with temperatures hovering mainly in the upper 20s to near 30 as you make your way to the bus stop and eventually on your way to school. For the rest of the day, at least some peaks of the sun will try to warm us up some. But again, it's going to be a cold afternoon. I'm seeing afternoon highs right around 37. I want to keep things dry for tonight, but partly to mostly cloudy skies. Overnight lows dropping to 25. Thankfully, we're looking at a dry weekend, Tanya, and eventually warmer temperatures on the way. We'll show you that in a 7-day coming up in a bit.
All right, got a lot to talk about.
Yes, we do.
Thanks, Nick. Well, breaking overnight, an apparent burglary at a Miami, Oklahoma home ends with a man shot dead. Police received a call just after midnight this morning about a burglary in progress at the 900 block of B Street Northwest. The caller said he shot someone who broke into his home. EMS took the suspect to Integris Hospital where he was pronounced dead. Police are still investigating and have not yet released any names. A Carthage, Missouri man dies in a wreck yesterday evening. 78-year-old James Robinson and 55-year-old Terry Abernathy were heading east on County Road 80 when they struck a vehicle parked in the roadway. Both were taken to the hospital where Abernathy was pronounced dead. Robinson suffered serious injuries. At least one Joplin resident was in Washington, D.C. when the riot on Capitol Hill broke out. Abby Covington, who led the recall effort against the Joplin City Council, went to Washington, D.C. when she heard there was going to be a protest at the Capitol against the Electoral College results. Covington took this video during what she says was initially just a protest before members of the crowd stormed the Capitol building. Krista Stark with the Southwest Missouri Democrats says what took place in Washington was anything but a protest.
They can say a lot of things about how they just intended this to be a protest, but storming the Capitol, tearing down the flag from Nancy Pelosi's office and crumpling it up on her desk is sedition. It's not a protest.
Covington says she did not enter the Capitol building. She remained outside in the crowd. Missouri Senator Josh Hawley has been making headlines for his actions following the riot. Critics have accused the senator of playing a role in what happened at the Capitol due to his objection of electoral votes in Pennsylvania. In a statement, Senator Hawley said, quote, "I will never apologize for giving voice to the millions of Missourians and Americans who have concerns about the integrity of our elections. That's my job, and I will keep doing it." Joplin businessman David Humphreys, a major Hawley donor, told the Missouri Independent that he believes the Senate should censor Hawley for, quote, provoking the riots in our nation's capital. The state of Oklahoma is moving further into phase 2 of its vaccination plan. Everyone in phase 1 is still able to get vaccinated, and that includes frontline healthcare workers and nursing home residents and staff. This latest stage adds healthcare workers who work outside of hospital settings, first responders, adults ages 65 and older, and adults of any age with comorbidities. The next stage of phase 2 will bring in teachers and public health staff. Well, since the pandemic took hold across the country, healthcare professionals were waging two wars, one with the virus and another with misinformation. That other battle is ramping up more as doctors and nurses work to encourage Americans to get a vaccine when available to them. Melissa Zigowitz shows how that fight is playing out in Arkansas.
This is not an exaggeration. The numbers are as they are.
That was Dr. Jose Romero at the governor's weekly press conference Tuesday, visibly upset and frustrated as Arkansas sees another day with more than 4,000 cases, warning the numbers could get even worse.
Because what we are seeing now is what I and all of us have warned about. That is a surge on top of a surge.
What's so disheartening is, as a scientist and a physician, is the amount of disinformation.
Dr. KOAM Patterson, the chancellor of UAMS, feels we are not doing enough to slow the spread. He says places like churches are holding large services without masks, ignoring guidelines recommended by the governor.
You hate to think that you thought you were going to celebrate your religious beliefs, and in turn, you were actually going to a super spreader event.
False information about the vaccine is also rampant, frustrating for Dr. Patterson.
Everything that is done to influence somebody not to get the vaccine, that's not just impacting them, it's impacting all of us.
At least 70% of Arkansans will need to be vaccinated to return to normal. That's why he's asking you to rely on information coming from scientists about the vaccine to make a well-informed decision for yourself and your family.
So no, Bill Gates has not put a microchip in the vaccine. We've given out over 4,000 doses of the vaccine here at UAMS without anything even moderately severe in terms of reactions.
Macy's will close its store at Joplin's North Park Mall. The company says the closure is part of its strategy announced earlier last year. Macy's says its regular non-seasonal employees who cannot be transferred to other nearby Macy's stores will be eligible for severance. The store, which has been at North Park Mall for 33 years, intends to have a clearance sale beginning this month that'll run for about 8 to 12 weeks. 5:07.
Let's have a look at our 7-day forecast for the first time this morning. We'll just deal with partly to mostly cloudy skies. No rain, no snow for today, but it's going to stay cold with highs only making it to 37. We'll stay in the upper 30s for Saturday and Sunday. Most of the weekend dry, but let's keep it on maybe a few flurries Sunday, Monday. Overall, though, we're going to hold off on any possible rain chances until very late next week, next Thursday.
All right, that's a look at this morning's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News, the aftermath of the Capitol assault.
FBI is searching for members of that riotous mob who breached the Capitol. I'm Deborah Alferone in Washington, where even after President Trump released a video condemning the violence, there are still calls for his immediate removal from office.
Plus, Freeman Health System is using a new tool in its fight against COVID-19. We'll hear from an Anderson, Missouri couple about how they believe it helped them beat back the disease. And the Kaminsky Classic continues. We'll have highlights from last night's biggest games. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back.
Last night was night 2 of the Kaminsky Classic at Joplin High, and that night gave us one of the best games of the week. The Webb City Cardinals hit the floor against Nevada in the battle of the top 10 teams, those two top 10 teams. Nevada currently ranked 10th in Class 5, and Webb City 2 spots ahead of number 8. We get off the turnover. Cole Vaden gives it to Nikai Howard for the easy finish right there. And then we go on to Trenton Hayes. He hit 3 threes, including that one yesterday. He had 17 points. Webb City jumps out to a 17-6 lead after the first. Second quarter, Tigers make the shots they missed early. There's Logan Applegate, pulls off the dribble. Then it's Logan McNeely, a 3. Very nice from the other side. A game-high 22 for him. Nevada cuts the lead to 5 at the half. And Webb City puts it out of reach in the third. Cole Vaden strong to the rim. That's 9 points. 8 boards for Vaden. And Nikai Howard finishes on the break. That nice layup. It was 17. A great win for the Cards as they won over Nevada, 65-55.
They've had our number the last couple of years, so we had a lot of motivation going into this game, and we were just excited to finally finish one off against those guys. I think they've got one of the best programs in Southwest Missouri, and our guys played well. I know they're excited and looking to play one more.
And after that one, Joplin aimed for his 2-0 start at the Classic when they face off against William Crispin. It was a hot start offensively for the Eagles with Always Right hitting the 3. More from him in a moment. While the younger brother, All Right, gets in on the action here. He steps in and buries that. He had 14. Then here's Dante Washington all the way to the rack. That's 25-13. But doesn't matter how deep, all he needs is a clean look, always right. Beats the first quarter buzzer, dropping on pace to top 100 after the first. In the second quarter, more from always right. He finishes with the game high 24. Nice bucket there. Joplin moves on to the tournament championship after winning 78-65. This week it's rivalry week for Pittsburgh State. Make that rivalry week. Still not easy to say. Again, for Pittsburgh State and Missouri Southern basketball, Saturday, the Girls welcome the Lions for their first of the two meetings this season. On the men's side, both teams kind of in the same position right now. Pitt State's 4-4, Missouri Southern at 4-3. The Lions haven't played since December 19th. That's a 2-point loss to Missouri Western. Although this rivalry won't be as rowdy from a fan standpoint, they're just happy to have a chance to get back on the floor for the first time in a while.
We need to have a good bounce back after losing Missouri Western, and I think our guys will just be happy to get out there and play.
It's disappointing that, the fans, you can't have very many fans, you can't have students obviously aren't around, to create that atmosphere that really helps you on a home court.
Definitely it'll be different this year with less fans. Usually it's pretty good rivalry, and we'll see what type of crowd they got.
And in international sports, the Tokyo Olympic and Paralympic Games in July, they are still on despite the Japanese government announcing a state of emergency for the capital city yesterday. Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga informed his country is determined to hold safe and secure games by taking all possible measures against the infection. He says he is optimistic that enthusiasm among the Japanese public will grow once vaccinations begin at the end of February. Suga announced a state of emergency for Tokyo and 3 neighboring prefectures after Japan reported a record number of new COVID-19 infections from Wednesday. Still to come, an Iraqi judge issues an arrest warrant for the president. We'll have the latest on that, but first, I will have a look at your 7-day forecast when we come back. At least we're finally off to a dry start this morning. We were dealing with rain yesterday with the stubborn upper low, make that rain on Wednesday. Yesterday, we were using the Skywatch storm tracker to watch rain and snow to start our morning out. Thankfully, though, this time around, we're just dealing with mostly cloudy skies. We are dry to start this morning out. So where is the storm system that gave us the rain and snow mix yesterday? Riding deep into the Tennessee Valley. In fact, snow for parts of the southern Appalachians and even trying to clip parts of Mississippi and Alabama. Usually they don't get a lot of snow at any time during the winter, so it'll be amazing for them to wake up with some snowflakes. A few other upper lows I'm watching, but at least we're starting off quiet this morning. Freeman Health System on the south side of Joplin looking quiet, but showing cloudy skies up top. 32 at the airport, feels like 25 though, with a north breeze at about 8 miles per hour. Most of us are sitting in the lower 30s this morning, but I think we could drop off a few more degrees before we hit sunrise this morning. So before we see temperatures back near 30 or 31 by 8 or 9 a.m., some of us can sneak back into the upper 20s. But even though we don't have any storm systems for today, partly to mostly cloudy skies, it's still going to be cold, 34 by noon, and afternoon highs right around 37 degrees. So a quick run of the future track here just shows partly to mostly cloudy skies holding steady throughout the course of the day. So even with the peaks of the sun, we're going to try and take advantage of that to get highs back into the upper 30s. Maybe a few spots on the Kansas and Oklahoma side near 40 before the afternoon is all said and done. But the overall trend is going to keep things cold for today and tonight. Dry, thankfully, but we're going to hold on to some clouds as we head into Saturday morning, and then we're going to hold on to mainly partly sunny skies. So at least a little more in the way of sunshine as we head into your Saturday. So let's go 39 with a little more sun on Saturday, 38 Sunday, 41 Monday. Thankfully, we are dry until we see rain chances by Thursday. Before those rain chances work in, it will be nice to see highs back near 60, thankfully, by Wednesday. In the meantime, President Trump is doing damage control following the assault by his supporters on the U.S. Capitol. He acknowledged he lost the 2020 election in the video released last night and said it's time for tempers to cool. Democrats say it's too late and he must be removed from office. Deborah Alfarone is on Capitol Hill with the latest.
Facing talk of a forceful removal from office and the resignation of 2 cabinet members, President Trump released a video condemning the violence by his supporters.
The demonstrators who infiltrated the Capitol have defiled the seat of American democracy.
Citing the president's rhetoric on Wednesday,
You'll never take back our country with weakness.
Education Secretary Betsy DeVos and Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao resigned.
Do you stand by this president dangerously staying in office?
Democrats are calling on the remaining cabinet members to remove the president using the 25th Amendment and threatening another impeachment.
He will be remembered for the rest of American history for death, division, and depression.
Federal law enforcement is working to identify those involved in Wednesday's assault. CBS News has learned that some of the rioters have stayed in the area and may be planning new attacks.
No one can tell me that if had been a group of Black Lives Matter protesting yesterday, they wouldn't have been treated very, very differently.
The Capitol Police Chief resigned amid intense criticism.
I've never seen a crowd that's less afraid of the police than this one.
In yesterday's video, President Trump discouraged any more violence.
We have just been through an intense election and emotions are high. But now tempers must be cooled.
Mr. Trump also acknowledged defeat and said he's focused on a smooth transition of power. Deborah Alfarone, CBS News, Washington.
Now, neither impeachment nor the 25th Amendment will likely succeed in removing President Trump this close to the end of his term. Both options would end up requiring significant congressional Republican support to pass. In the meantime, though, this is the subject of our morning talker. We want to hear from you. Do you think President Trump should be held responsible for the riot on Capitol Hill? And we want to hear from you why or why not. You can chime in on our KOAM News Now Facebook page to chime in with your reasoning and also participate in our KOAM News Now Insta poll. Just head to KOAMNewsNow.com/vote or vote using the KOAM News app for Apple and Android. In the meantime, we'll get a quick commercial break and Tanya will be back with Health Watch. Stick with us.
Topping Health Watch this morning, Joplin's Freeman Hospital is using a special kind of antibody therapy to help COVID-19 patients. It was recently granted emergency use authorization by the FDA. A couple from Anderson, Missouri believes the treatment has helped them get back on their feet. KOAM's Mike Mahoney has their story.
Jeff and Alicia Brady are an Anderson, Missouri couple who are feeling a lot better after being treated by Joplin's Freeman Hospital for COVID-19.
The turnaround was pretty quick. The next day, we were both feeling better, and we've been feeling every bit better every day since.
The Bradys are crediting their rapid recovery to Freeman staff and a new treatment recently granted emergency use authorization by the FDA called bamlanivimab, monoclonal antibody treatment. According to the FDA, the treatment is for COVID-positive patients at risk of progressing to severe symptoms or hospitalization.
I feel better every day, and it seemed like it worked pretty fast. I was having a lot of headaches and stomach cramping and backache, and those pretty much have gone away.
President Trump received a similar antibody treatment when he was infected with the coronavirus, but with the procedure still being studied, it's not quite as well known as other treatments. But the Bradys believe bamlanivimab is the real deal, so they're trying to get the word out.
We weren't even aware of the option. I think there are many people out there that aren't aware that it even is a treatment option right now.
We thought if we could save somebody's life by posting it, we wanted them to know about it.
In Joplin, Mike Mahoney, KOAM News.
Staff is hopeful this treatment will reduce emergency room visits among COVID-19 patients. A new study finds common blood pressure medications are safe for patients hospitalized with COVID-19. There was early concern the medications could make COVID more severe, but researchers found no evidence that during an international trial with more than 150 patients. While researchers around the world work to develop even more COVID vaccines, there's a push among some scientists to also find medications that shorten the infectious period of the virus. They believe millions of lives could be saved by reducing the time people are contagious with the deadly disease. Researchers in Germany say they have developed a vaccine that delays and reduces the severity of a multiple sclerosis-like disease in mice. They believe their findings could one day help create personalized MS treatments for people. That's a look at some of today's top health stories. You're watching the KOAM Morning News.
But it's 5:27. Quick check of the forecast before we hit a commercial break. And just in case you're ready to head out the door, it's going to be a cold day, but a dry day with partly to mostly cloudy skies. 30 degrees by 8 a.m., 34 by noon. I only see us topping out around 37 degrees when normally we should be topping out in the mid 40s. Let's stay dry for much of this weekend with highs in the upper 30s Saturday and Sunday, back into the lower 40s on Monday. And fortunately, we're back into the 50s on Tuesday and pushing 60 by Wednesday. Another half hour of news coming up. Stick with us.
News starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 5:30. I'm Tanya Bach. Coming up this half hour, our morning talker today is about calls to remove the president from office. We're asking whether or not you think the president should be held responsible for the unrest on Capitol Hill. And local political science professor breaks down the 25th Amendment and if it can be invoked this close to Inauguration Day. But first, a check on your forecast.
Thank you, China. Good morning, everybody. Nick here with Michael Hayslip having yet another day off that he could savor as the weekend gets going. We're looking quiet for Freeman Health System on the south side of Joplin, and thankfully, no rain, no snow, nothing falling from the skies and being picked up on the Skywatch storm tracker. That being said, we are dealing with partly to mostly cloudy skies as we go throughout the course of the day as we see our departed storm system now working across the Tennessee Valley and parts of the deep south. As far as temperatures go, everyone's off to a cold start this morning. Most spots around Joplin and much of the area between 30 and 32. But we're seeing some upper 20s popping up around the Veda and Stockton Lakes. So no doubt a cold start to our Friday morning. Fortunately for any kiddos making their way to school this morning, we're going to keep things dry, but you'll definitely want to bundle up again with temperatures holding in the upper 20s to near 30. 31 by 9 a.m. and still going to be cold today with highs near 37. So we'll do our best to warm things up with some peaks of the sun. But overall, again, Tanya, looking at partly to mostly cloudy skies. Fortunately, we're dry for today, and I think we can hold dry for the weekend and much of next week. We'll show you that in the 7-day coming up in a bit.
All right. I'm looking forward to next week. I'm ready for that warm up to get here now.
Yeah, if they haven't seen it yet, they'll know exactly what you're talking about later on.
All right. Thanks, Nick. Well, breaking news overnight, an apparent burglary at a Miami, Oklahoma home ends with a man shot dead. Police received a call just after midnight this morning about a burglary in progress at the 900 block of B Street Northwest. The caller said he shot someone who broke into his home. EMS took the suspect to Integris Hospital where he was pronounced dead. Police are still investigating and have not yet released any names. At least one Joplin resident was in Washington when the riot on Capitol Hill broke out. Abby Covington, who led the recall effort against the Joplin City Council, went to Washington, D.C. when she heard there was going to be a protest at the Capitol against the Electoral College results. Covington took this video during what she says was initially just a protest before members of the crowd stormed the Capitol building. Covington says she did not enter the Capitol building. She remained outside in the crowd. The state of Oklahoma enters the next step of phase 2 of its coronavirus vaccine rollout plan. While the state is not including all of its phase 2 groups with this step, there are some additions to who is eligible to get a vaccine. And that includes first responders, healthcare workers who do not work in a hospital setting, and adults over the age of 65 or any adult with comorbidities. Officials estimate these groups include 707,000 Oklahomans. Well, in the coming weeks, the city of St. Louis, Missouri will begin a new program intended to divert mental health calls away from 911. It's an effort that could reduce the number of calls to dispatch while also pairing police officers with social workers for safer interactions and outcomes. Alexis Zotos has more on how it would work.
At the end of the day, this is about saving people's lives, right? And so we want to make sure that people are connected to the resources that they need.
A new approach to public safety. In the next month, St. Louis City hopes to divert thousands of 911 calls to behavioral health response, where trained professionals can help with mental health situations. Right now, St. Louis City Dispatch handles around 700,000 911 calls a year. Concern News 4 has reported on numerous times. This program could reduce that by around 5,000.
It will, and eventually, I believe, diminish those calls, but it also will let the dispatchers know you don't have to figure this all out, right? just like the police officer on the scene doesn't have to figure it all out by themselves.
Wilford Pickney works for the mayor's office and is a former New York City police officer. He explains the second part of the program involves sending trained social workers out with police on calls determined to involve mental health concerns.
Our clinicians are on the scene with the police officer. They talk to the person, they make sure everything is de-escalated, and then they make sure the person has a safety plan.
The city is funding the program by diverting $860,000 from the budget for the medium security institution, also known as the Workhouse. This program is similar to what many activists behind calls to defund the police have been asking for, an effort to use someone other than police to de-escalate certain situations.
The goal is not to defund the police. The goal is to fund the services that people need.
Behavior Health Response, which is partnering with the city, provides crisis support and mental health resources 24 hours a day. Well, the last surviving widow of a Civil War soldier has died. Helen Viola Jackson of Marshfield, Missouri, was just 17 years old when she married 93-year-old James Bolin in 1936. She was a caregiver for the Civil War veteran who served in the Union Army. Jackson claimed Bolin proposed to her so he could pass on his pension to her after he died to repay her for her services. This was during the Great Depression when many Americans were struggling. The young bride says she and her husband's relationship was strictly platonic, and she never even moved into his house. They were only married for 3 years before Bolin passed away in 1939. Now, Jackson kept her story and the marriage a secret until 2018, out of fear people would judge her or her late husband. She never remarried and never tried to collect his pension. Numerous historical societies have corroborated her story. Helen Viola Jackson was 101 when she died last month in a Missouri nursing home. What a story. That's a look at our top news stories coming up this half hour in the KOAM Morning News. Our own Jesse Irwin learns everything we need to know about the 25th Amendment.
Well, with conversations about the 25th Amendment coming up, because of conversations from legislators, people are asking, how does it work? Who enacts it? And ultimately, why is it being discussed right now? We speak with an MSSU professor about it coming up.
Plus, military officers storm Ghana's parliament following a contested presidential election. We'll have the latest, but first, it's 5:37.
A quick check on the forecast once again before we head another commercial break. We are quiet. We are staying dry as our Friday and our weekend finally gets going. It's going to be another cold one nonetheless. Even with partly to mostly cloudy skies today, that north breeze at 5 to 10 keeps us at 31 by 9 a.m., 34 by noon, and we'll top things out around 37 degrees for this afternoon. Heading into tonight, sticking with partly to mostly cloudy skies, I think we'll stay dry, but it's going to be another cold one with lows actually dropping to 25 before we hit sunrise on Saturday. Fortunately, the rest of the weekend staying dry, partly sunny Saturday with highs closer to 40, but we'll stay in the upper 30s for Sunday, looking at lower 40s on Monday. And as Tanya promised, that warm up by the middle of next week. Looking good, 52 Tuesday and 60 by Wednesday. We'll be back with World Watch on the other side. Stick with us.
Topping World Watch, the UK has introduced mandatory COVID-19 testing for all arrivals into the country. Starting next week, passengers will be required to present a negative test result. The test must be taken within 72 hours prior to departure for entry, along with the passenger locator form. The measures will be required for all visitors, including UK nationals. They aim to protect the country against the new strains of coronavirus seen in Denmark and South Africa. Those who fail to comply could be subject to a £500 fine, which comes out to about $678 US. A wild scene in the Ghana parliament this week. A group of military officers burst onto the floor of the nation's parliament following an argument between ruling and opposition party lawmakers. The incident took place ahead of the swearing-in ceremony of the country's president and the new parliament spokesperson. Some legislators were seen walking the soldiers out. It wasn't immediately made clear who ordered them to enter. The incident took place after the December election that shook the nation up. As the nation's former president, John Dramani Mahama, refused to concede defeat and petitioned the Supreme Court to turn aside the results, President Nana Akufo-Addo was sworn in on Thursday after winning over 51% of the votes. An Iraqi judge has issued an arrest warrant for U.S. President Donald Trump. The warrant was for the death of an Iraqi military leader killed during the assassination of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani just over a year ago. Last week, a large crowd gathered in Baghdad at the site of the drone strike to mark the one-year anniversary. Tributes were broadcast on loudspeakers while attendees chanted, quote, "America is the great Satan," end quote. Now, Iran has also issued an arrest warrant for President Trump over the results of the targeted airstrike. That's a look at some of your biggest headlines from around the world. Let's toss it over to Nick for our Something to Talk About.
And thank you for that, Tanya. Now, in the White House video, President Trump acknowledges a transfer of power to President-elect Joe Biden will take place on January 20th, but he did not concede the election. Top Democrats are calling for the president's removal from office before then, either under the 25th Amendment or by impeachment in the wake of the attack of the U.S. Capitol on Wednesday. So we made this the subject of our Something to Talk About this morning. Should President Trump be held responsible for the riot on Capitol Hill? Why or why not? And no doubt about it, plenty of you are chiming in. We have Jim Armstrong at the top of the list saying the 25th Amendment needs to be invoked now. He has failed in all aspects of duties, responsibilities, and actions, and has disgraced the office of the President of the United States of America and the country. Linda Hopper doesn't seem to agree with that. She thinks he's a great president. Tammy says if they remove Trump, they'll have to remove everyone from Pelosi on down. They've all been complicit. And we see plenty of people chiming in. Tammy suggesting no, he's not responsible for all this. And Cheryl Rex Winkle saying why, when considering inauguration is less than 2 weeks. But with Jim Cotton here saying he needs to be removed, this is no way to lead a country. Keep on chiming in. We will see what you have to say later on. In the meantime, we'll be back after the break.
Here's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door. An apparent burglary at a Miami, Oklahoma home ends with a man shot dead. Police received a call just after midnight this morning about a burglary in progress at the 900 block of B Street Northwest. The caller said he shot someone who broke into his home. EMS took the suspect to Integris Hospital where he was pronounced dead. Police are still investigating and have not yet released any names. A Carthage, Missouri man dies in a wreck yesterday evening. 78-year-old James Robinson and 55-year-old Terry Abernathy were heading east on County Road 80 when they struck a vehicle parked in the roadway. Both were taken to the hospital where Abernathy was pronounced dead. Robinson suffered serious injuries. The state of Oklahoma is moving further into phase 2 of its vaccination plan. Everyone in phase 1 is still able to get vaccinated, and that includes the frontline healthcare workers and nursing home residents and staff. This latest stage adds healthcare workers who work outside of hospital settings, first responders, adults ages 65 and older, and adults of any age with comorbidities. The next stage of phase 2 will bring in teachers and public health staff. Freeman Hospital is shining some light on one of its tools in the fight against COVID-19. It's called monoclonal antibody therapy. It's used in patients who are most at risk of becoming seriously ill, but must be used before they get sick. That's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door.
And for our forecast today, ladies and gentlemen, we are dealing with, thankfully, a much drier and calmer start to our day compared to the rain and snow we had to deal with yesterday. Doesn't change the fact that we're going to hold on to partly to mostly cloudy skies, even though we don't have any storm systems on top of us. And it's going to stay cold, 34 degrees by noon. We'll see afternoon highs today pushing 37 with a north breeze at about 5 to 10 miles per hour. Heading into this evening, we'll stay cold. No surprise there with partly to mostly cloudy skies, 33 by 6 o'clock and dropping all the way back to 25 before we hit sunrise on your Saturday. Fortunately, the weekend stays dry, so even though it will look nice, with no threatening weather on the way, it's going to stay cold with lows in the mid-20s and highs in the upper 30s for Saturday and Sunday. Fortunately, we're back in the lower 40s on Monday, mostly cloudy skies, but look at the middle of the week, 52 on Tuesday, 60 on Wednesday. We'll certainly enjoy that before we see highs back in the 50s on Thursday with maybe some rain chances by next Thursday afternoon.
With a lot of questions surrounding the 25th Amendment and the next 2 weeks heading into the Biden administration from the Trump administration, we bring in Professor Brendan Higashi from Missouri Southern State University. And Brendan, I mean, there's so many questions about the 25th Amendment.
Of course.
And surrounding how it works, why it's in place, when it's enacted, has it ever been enacted? So do you mind just starting out sort of explaining what the 25th Amendment says?
So the 25th Amendment is broken into a handful of sections, and these sections really are designed to spell out what happens in the case of the vacancy in the presidency and the vice presidency. Prior to its adoption, the Constitution simply said that if the presidency becomes vacant or the president is unable to discharge their duties, the vice president may step in and fill those roles. And so traditionally, when the vice president stepped in the event of the death of a presidency, the vice presidency was just left vacant. And the president pro tempore of the Senate would take over responsibilities in presiding over the Senate. Since the assassination of President John Fitzgerald Kennedy, however, Congress decided to propose the 25th Amendment and provide for the replacement of the vice president, and to provide for instances in which there might be a prolonged disability of the president, or some reason the president might be unable to discharge their duties.
Gotcha. So Section 4 and Section 3, they sort of spell out these different circumstances. And I know Section 4 is what has been talked about more recently with the Trump administration and Vice President Pence being called to enact this section. So what kind of circumstances right now are we looking at that applies to Section 4?
So with Section 4, essentially what it is when the vice president and a majority of the principal officers of the executive departments agree, then the president can essentially be stripped of their powers, at least temporarily, and the vice president would take over and discharge the duties of president as acting president. The president, under these procedures, could challenge that. President Trump could say, no, I'm still fit. I'm still able to discharge my duties. I'm still president. And from the moment he transmits that letter to the Speaker of the House and the President pro tempore of the Senate, the Vice President would have, I believe, 4 days to respond and essentially assert, no, the President is still unable to discharge their duties, in which case, should the Vice President reject the President's, I guess, reclamation of power, then the House and Senate would have to take up the matter within 2 days and vote essentially on that issue. And they would have to decide if they decide in favor of the vice president, they have to do so with a 2/3 supermajority. Anything less than that, and the president would resume their duties.
Brendan, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it feels like there's a lot of ping pong of responses, letters. I mean, this is a process that doesn't just happen necessarily overnight. So why is this something that's being talked about with, I mean, gosh, less than 2 weeks to go in the Trump administration?
Well, I mean, frankly, we've never had a sitting president essentially incite insurrection or a riot or direct a riot at another branch of government. I think it's clearly unprecedented to see a sitting president suggest to a group of his supporters that if you really want to see him maintain the presidency, then go challenge Congress, go challenge the certification of the electoral votes. And that's really what we saw yesterday, was a group of his supporters storm the Capitol building, something that hasn't happened since the War of 1812, when the British set fire to the building. And the result of that is some serious questioning on behalf of, from what I understand, at least some members of the cabinet, definitely some members of Congress, who are calling for the invocation of the 25th and for Pence to assume the role of acting president for the next 2 weeks.
When you watch this, are you sort of looking at it with the perspective of realistically this can't happen within a 2 week span? Or is it something that can in fact be enacted within the next 2 weeks?
The 25th Amendment easily could be enacted within the next 2 weeks. I don't think there's much of a hurdle there. The question is going to be if we continue to see significant resignations from cabinet level officials. There's some ambiguity as to whether or not acting heads of departments would be able to invoke the 25th Amendment or not. And if people are resigning rather than invoke it, there may not be political support among the cabinet members to invoke it in the first place.
Well, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us. We'll have this segment on our website, KOAMnewsnow.com. But hey, Brennan, thank you again. We really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
We are looking at a quiet start this morning and just a little hiccup on the graphics on my end, but bear with me, folks. I will get the forecast up here for you. If I can find it in one of my 500 weather graphics I have in my workspace. Here we go. We are cloudy but quiet to start the morning out. We're going to keep partly and mostly cloudy for the day. Temperatures are going to stay cold, but with some peaks of the sun, we will do some warming up throughout the day. 34 by noon, afternoon highs around 37. And our sneak at the 7-day forecast keeps us cold, but quiet for the rest of the weekend. Let's go partly sunny, highs near 39 for your Saturday after we start cold at 25. Holding in the upper 30s for Sunday before we're back in the lower 40s by Monday. But look at Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. A nice bump in temperatures. 52 for your Tuesday afternoon and pushing 60 by Wednesday. Another hour of news coming up.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 6 a.m. I'm Tanya Bach. Coming up this half hour, how restaurants are changing their stores to adapt with the pandemic. And for our Something to Talk About, we're asking whether or not you think the president should be held responsible for the unrest on Capitol Hill on Wednesday. You can also chime in our Insta poll at KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. But first, a check on your forecast.
Thanks, Tanya. And good morning, everybody. Nick here with Michael Hayslip, having another day off to enjoy. Looking at quiet skies from Freeman Health System on the south side of Joplin. It is a quiet start for sure, and it is nice that the Skywatch Storm Tracker, the live radar network, not showing a single drop of rain or a single flake of snow, unlike the rain and snow that we had to start yesterday morning with. That storm system is deep into the Tennessee Valley now. Still on the back side of it, cloud cover rotating in from that storm system, but we will have some peaks of the sun to help warm things up, and we'll certainly take advantage of it because it's still cold out there at the 6 o'clock hour. 29 for Nevada, Fort Scott, Stockton Lake, and Aiello. Everyone else is sitting mainly in the lower 30s. So kids, before you head to school, you don't need the rain gear today or the snow boots for that matter, but you want to bundle up again. We'll be holding near 30 as we get ready to head to school this morning. And for the rest of the day, again, some peaks of the sun will warm us up, but it's still going to stay cold. 34 degrees by noon. We'll push afternoon highs to about 37. And thankfully, the extended forecast, Tanya, keeps us dry for a while and eventually a nice warm up on the way too. We'll break that down for you here in a bit.
All right. Sounds like we've got a lot to talk about.
A lot of good news to talk about.
Yeah. I'm not ready for another cold weekend, though, that's for sure.
No, but it's like you said earlier, it's looking a lot better once we get past that.
There you go. All right, thanks, Nick. Well, breaking news overnight, an apparent burglary at a Miami, Oklahoma home ends with a man shot dead. Police received a call just after midnight this morning about a burglary in progress at the 900 block of B Street Northwest. The caller said he shot someone who broke into his home. EMS took the suspect to Integris Hospital where he was pronounced dead. Police are still investigating and have not yet released any names. A Joplin resident was at the Capitol when the riot broke out. Abby Covington, you might remember her from leading the recall effort against the Joplin City Council. She went to Washington, D.C. when she heard of a protest planned at the Capitol. KOAM's Chris Warner has her story and reaction from the Southwest Missouri Democrats.
What you're looking at is video taken by Joplin resident Abby Covington Wednesday at our nation's capital. Covington said she heard a protest of the Electoral College results was planned, and she decided to join a small group going up.
You know, we just said we've got to go to our nation's capital and petition our leaders for redress of grievances. You know, let them know, and nobody went with any intentions to cause any trouble or hurt anybody at all.
Covington says she uses the term protest because she says that's what it was when it started, but then things began to change. Krista Stark with the Southwest Missouri Democrats says she's been a part of many protests, and what happened Wednesday was anything but.
They can say a lot of things about how they just intended this to be a protest, but storming the Capitol, tearing down the flag from Nancy Pelosi's office and crumpling it up on her desk is sedition. It's not a protest.
Stark says she doesn't condone what happened Wednesday, nor could she condone even her own party doing something similar. Covington says she doesn't think it's fair how members of the crowd are being portrayed, since the majority of them never entered the Capitol building.
You can see it was just regular people. It was, they're painting us as extremists. They're painting us as white supremacists. It was people of every ethnic background there. We had people of every religion. This was just your normal, average, regular American exercising our right to petition our government.
Stark says she has no problem with the protests. She says it's an important First Amendment right, but she has a problem with Wednesday's Capitol storming.
And I can tell you, I have never seen a protest or participated in a protest that looked like that, nor would I participate in promoting something that many of us feel was intentioned to turn into that in the first place.
I'm Chris Warner for KOAM News.
Covington says she did not enter the Capitol building. She remained outside in the crowd. Well, a man photographed lounging in the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's office during riots Wednesday has been identified as an Arkansas man who says he was just looking for the bathroom. He is 60-year-old Richard Bigo Barnett from Gravette, who's involved with a pro-gun rights group in Northwest Arkansas. He admits to KFSM in Arkansas that he is the person in the viral photo. Barnett says he took an envelope off of Pelosi's desk and left her a quarter and a note.
I set my flag down and I sat down here at my desk. I'm a taxpayer. I'm a patriot. That is her desk. We loaned her that desk, and she ain't appreciating the desk, so I thought I'd sit down and appreciate the desk. I threw my feet up on the desk.
FBI says Barnett could face federal charges. Many who stormed the Capitol appear to be conspiracy theorists and extremists involved with groups like QAnon and the Proud Boys. Well, Senator Josh Hawley's publisher announced yesterday it would not publish his book, The Tyranny of Big Tech, which was scheduled to hit shelves in June. In a statement, Simon & Schuster accused Hawley of playing a role in what it called a dangerous threat to our democracy and freedom. Hawley tweeted a response. It reads in part, "This could not be more Orwellian. Simon & Schuster is canceling my contract because I was representing my constituents, leading a debate on the Senate floor." He goes on to say the cancellation is an assault on the First Amendment and plans to see the company in court. Well, the state of Oklahoma has entered the next step of phase 2 of its coronavirus vaccine rollout plan. While the state is not including all of its phase 2 groups with this step, there are some additions who is eligible to get a vaccine. That includes first responders, healthcare workers who do not work in a hospital setting, and adults over the age of 65 or any adult with comorbidities. Officials estimate these groups need 707,000 Oklahomans.
Currently, the Oklahoma had to submit a phased approach, and during each one of those phases is different subgroups, and it's never a linear process. But currently, right now, we want to make sure all frontline workers in the medical field were.
Groups in phase 2 who have not become eligible yet include public health support staff and teachers. It's 6:07.
Quick check of the 7-day forecast has us quiet for today. Partly to mostly cloudy skies for the rest of the day once we get past sunrise. 37 degrees, that's the best we can do as highs today. Let's stay in the upper 30s for Saturday and Sunday. Monday, we're back in the lower 40s, and eventually we're back to 52 on Tuesday, 60 on Wednesday. So that's looking pretty good until we hit rain chances again by Thursday.
That's a look at this morning's top stories and weather at our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News, Jesse Irwin talks to United Way.
Well, as we look at 2021, a lot of organizations are finding their way. We speak with United Way about how they're approaching things as we start off the new year. We'll have that for you coming up.
West Freeman Hospital shines some light on its new antibody treatment, and the world has a new richest man. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning. We'll be right back. In Money Watch this morning, Wall Street hit record highs on Thursday. The Dow gained 211 points. The Nasdaq jumped 326. The S&P 500 rose 55. Investors feel confident that the incoming Biden administration and Democratic Congress will pass another coronavirus relief bill to get the pandemic under control and give businesses some much-needed stimulus. Some uncertainty was also taken out of the next few weeks after President Trump released a video promising a smooth transition of power on January 20th. Well, Facebook and Instagram have locked President Trump's accounts until he is out of office. It comes after weeks of baseless attacks on the election by the president, culminating in the storming of the U.S. Capitol by his supporters. CEO Mark Zuckerberg said the risk of allowing President Trump to use the platforms is too great. Well, the pandemic has forced restaurants to adapt, and now some major chains are accelerating plans to redesign stores completely. Elise Preston reports.
There's something missing from Chipotle's latest restaurant outside of New York City. The menu is the same, but customers can't eat inside this location. The kitchen offers pickup and delivery only. Orders are made and paid for with an app.
We're calling it our digital kitchen. It's the first of its kind.
Chipotle CFO Jack Hartung says plans for the store were made before the pandemic, but coronavirus shutdowns make this model a good option for urban areas with lots of people and less space.
The vast majority of our sites are still going to have a dining room. If we have an area, for example, where it's very difficult to get the size restaurant we need to have a dining room, we know now we can bring a restaurant like this that's a digital kitchen.
The digital age is making fast food even faster. Some Chipotle locations have a lane specifically for pre-orders, and others even offer a pickup window.
You'll also see changes at some new Starbucks, like this one in Manhattan. Over the next year, the company plans to close hundreds of dine-in stores and open locations that are pickup only.
The coronavirus pandemic has accelerated trends that were already on their way to greater adoption.
Food trend expert Karen Nielsen says many fast food chains are redesigning stores to provide a faster experience with less contact. This year, Burger King and others will unveil restaurants with a second drive-through lane and mobile ordering pickup.
We'll definitely see more of this, and we're going to see more types of operators and restaurant chains adopt this.
Chipotle plans to open more digital stores, and for good reason. Around half of all customer purchases are now made on an app or online. Elise Preston, CBS News, New York.
Well, the world has a new richest man. Tesla CEO Elon Musk eclipsed Amazon's Jeff Bezos, and that's according to the Bloomberg Billionaire Index. Musk has risen Tesla's share price like one of his SpaceX rockets to the top spot, adding more than $150 billion in the past year. The 49-year-old is now worth $195 billion, $10 billion more than Bezos. He can do that happy dance. That's it for Money Watch. Here's Nick with our Something to Talk About.
I will say something to talk about. He's a better dancer than I'll ever be. But switching to the topic at hand here, in a White House video, President Trump acknowledges the transfer of power to President-elect Biden will take place on January 20th, but he did not concede the election. Top Democrats are calling for the president's removal from office before then, either under the 25th Amendment or by impeachment in wake of the attack on the Capitol Wednesday. So we made this the subject of our morning to talker, or something to talk about. Do you think President Trump should be held responsible for either inciting the riot or being a part of the riot? Many of you have chimed in. We have Lydia Gibson, if we could take Max Storm Full, saying no. Tammy McDonald saying no, President Trump's not responsible. Linda Hopper saying he was a great president, so she doesn't agree that he should be held responsible. Jim, however, saying the 25th Amendment needs to be invoked now. He thinks he has failed in all aspects of his duties. We have Melinda saying no, and we've got Christy and Rick Norton pretty much saying no. And we've got plenty more people chiming in, and we'll also check in with the KOAM News Now Insta poll a little bit later on. You can go there to KOAMNewsNow.com/vote, either yes or no, or you can vote via the KOAM News app on Apple and Android. I'll be back with the forecast after the break. Fast look at our weather here at 6:17. We're starting with the satellite radar composite. On the heels of our last storm system that worked on through, we are dry but partly to mostly cloudy to start this morning out. In fact, the bigger picture with the systems that we're tracking, this one that was affecting us yesterday well into the Tennessee Valley now, and just a few more upper lows that will try to skirt on by this weekend. But at least we're quiet for Freeman Health System on the south side of Joplin, and everyone's cold, with most of us sitting in the upper 20s to the lower 30s. A quick look at our forecast for today. Again, we're going to stay dry, but we're starting with cloudy skies this morning. Then we'll get some peaks of the sun during the afternoon, 34 by noon. Staying cold today with afternoon highs right around 37 degrees. The extended forecast has us staying cold but quiet for Saturday and Sunday with highs in the upper 30s, lows in the middle 20s. Then we're going to see temperatures pushing into the 40s on Monday and eventually 52 by Tuesday. Let's toss it over to Jesse.
Well, as we start 2021, there's a lot of organizations that are working to sort of figure out how they want to do things this year. And one of those organizations is United Way of Southwest Missouri and Southeast Kansas. And we are fortunate enough to be joined by Dwayne Dreiling, who is the executive director of it. And Dwayne, I'm happy to be able to talk to you because, first of all, Happy New Year.
Well, Happy New Year to you as well.
And I want to zero in on what the last half of 2020 looked like. Last time we talked, you guys were looking to kind of continue on with the campaign and figure out, what areas we need to really zero in on. But I mean, what did that look like from your perspective?
Well, yeah, and the last half of 2020 was kind of a mixed bag of a lot of different things. Obviously, in October, November, and December, we're focusing on campaign and trying to bring in those campaign dollars and working with our great corporate partners. And that continues even into the new year.
Well, so I want to quickly go back because when you say campaign, can you just sort of explain for anyone who's not familiar with how United Way works? Can you sort of define for us what campaign is and what that effort looks like and goes toward?
Yeah, absolutely. So the United Way campaign is our annual campaign where we work with both companies and individuals. I kind of separate it out into two different categories. So working with companies and many of our, I call them corporate partners, they'll do an employee campaign where they will send out the pledge cards and allow their employees to pledge dollars, whether it be a one-time gift of $100 or $50, or they can also do a payroll deduction. Where that company says, okay, we'll allow you to do payroll deduction. And so the employee will mark on the pledge form and they'll say, okay, I want to do $10 a paycheck for the next 26 pay periods. That's $260. So, and so they allow them to do that. And then the really nice thing about that is then the company does that payroll deduction, which comes straight out of their paycheck. And so it's a really nice way to give and not necessarily see it, it's money that you maybe didn't even see because it didn't come in on your paycheck.
Well, so when it comes to the community investment panels that you have, you have all sorts of community members involved in the process of deciding, how much of this money is allocated to different organizations based on their needs, based on their what they're aspiring toward as an organization. So how are you doing those? Because I know you usually do those in person, but clearly things are being done differently right now. So are you still trying to do those in person? Are you kind of thinking big picture, well, maybe there's a benefit to being able to do these virtually? I mean, I could see it both ways, but what are you looking at?
Yeah, exactly. And that's we're kind of in that process right now of determining exactly what that's going to look like. I think there's some real opportunities to maybe even provide more community engagement in that process.
Very cool. Well, it sounds like you've got an exciting 2021 ahead of you. So I'm sure we will talk to you again very soon. But Dwayne Dreiling, thank you so much. We will have more information about United Way on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. Head to our morning show page. We'll be right back on the KOAM Morning News after this.
Topping Health Watch this morning, the COVID-19 pandemic is the reason the NCAA decided to hold its entire men's basketball tournament in central Indiana this spring. Teams and staff members coming from across the country could also bring a risk of turning March Madness into a super spreader event. Russ McQuaid talked with both health and NCAA officials about what they're doing to keep Indianapolis and the players safe from COVID-19.
Covered walkways connecting downtown hotels with the Indiana Convention Center will play a key role in keeping COVID-19 away from the basketball teams attending this spring's NCAA tournament. Teams will be coming from all across America to Indianapolis, some for up to 3 weeks, in order to crown a new college basketball champion. And local health officials already have measures in place to keep them from bringing coronavirus with them.
These participants will be tested 7 days for 7 straight days before anyone from Tier 1 participants arrive in Indianapolis.
The tournament in Indianapolis won't exactly be like the NBA's Orlando bubble.
We're not going to be able to create that specifically in Indianapolis, but we will come incredibly close to that, and we will create an environment that our teams are operating in right now, which is very controlled.
And then once they get into the city, IU Health will be testing every team participant from Tier 1 every day. And they won't even be allowed to start practicing until they've had tier testing for at least 2 days and they're negative. And then they can begin practicing once they are here in Indianapolis.
As for meals for the teams, most likely that will be room service. And the convention center practice space will be closed off, and fans won't be allowed into the games.
Currently, right now, we're not having any fans, but they will allow 6 individuals for each participant from their household to attend this event. But there will be no player or participant be able to have any face-to-face interaction with any of their relatives.
Indianapolis has hosted some smaller high school sports events since last summer, and up to 12,000 Colts fans at Lucas Oil Stadium. Marion County's public health officials feel the 2,000 direct NCAA participants per day will fall within the county's comfort zone.
We are way, way below what you would consider a 25% capacity of a sports event, not even close.
Well, Dr. Kane says she expects with more widespread vaccinations and a plateauing or drop-off of new COVID-19 infections, by mid-March, Indianapolis should be posed to host a tournament that's not a danger to public health. Freeman Hospital is shining some light on one of its tools in the fight against COVID-19. It's called monoclonal antibody therapy. It's used in patients who are at most risk of becoming seriously ill and must be used before they get sick. The therapy is an outpatient procedure. That's a look at some of today's top health stories. You're watching the KOAM Morning News.
Quick check of our forecast before we hit another commercial break. We are staying quiet, thankfully, for today, but even with partly to mostly cloudy skies, we're looking at a cold day ahead of us. We're in the upper 20s to lower 30s right now. I'm only seeing us going to 34 by noon instead of an average high of 44 for today. We'll only make it to 37 this afternoon. Another half hour of news coming up.
News starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 6:30. I'm Tanya Bach. Coming up this half hour, President-elect Joe Biden announced his pick for Attorney General. We'll have details and something to talk about on the KOAM News Now Facebook page. We're asking whether or not you think the president should be held responsible for the riot on Capitol Hill. You can also chime in our Insta poll at KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. But first, check on your forecast.
Thank you, China, and a good morning to you folks. Nick here once again with Hayslip enjoying another day off, and it's good for him. We are seeing mostly cloudy skies atop of Freeman Health System right now. Nothing underneath the clouds, though. It's nice to see the radar and the Skywatch Storm Tracker dry after we had to deal with rain and snow to start our Thursday out yesterday. We're just keeping things dry for today, even with partly to mostly cloudy skies set for us. We are seeing a cold start to our morning, though. 27 in Iola, 29 in Lamar. Then once you hop south of Lamar, everyone else is sitting in the lower 30s. For the bus stop, kiddos, you want to bundle up. You don't have to worry about rain or snow for today. But on your way to school, be sure you do have the jackets handy, because we'll be holding in the upper 20s to lower 30s. And as for the rest of the day, the peaks of the sun will help us warm up some, but it's still going to stay cold. 34 by noon, highs near 37. We'll get a fresh look at the 7-day, including, thankfully, Tanya, warmer temperatures on the way coming up in a bit.
I want to hear more about that. Warmer temperatures on the way.
You'll love the numbers coming up.
All right, sounds good. Well, breaking news overnight, an apparent burglary at a Miami, Oklahoma home ends with a man shot dead. Police received a call just after midnight this morning about a burglary in progress at the 900 block of B Street Northwest. The caller said he shot someone who broke into his home. EMS took the suspect to Integris Hospital where he was pronounced dead. Police are still investigating and have not yet released any names. At least one Joplin resident was in Washington, D.C. when the riot on Capitol Hill broke out. Abby Covington, you'll remember, who led the recall effort against the Joplin City Council, had went to Washington, D.C. when she heard there was going to be a protest at the Capitol against the Electoral College results. Covington took this video during what she says was initially just a protest before members of the crowd stormed the Capitol building. Covington says she did not enter the Capitol building. She remained outside and in the crowd. Newly elected Senator Roger Marshall from Kansas issued a statement following the vote that said in part, quote, "Joe Biden is the president-elect and we must and will have peaceful transition of power on the 20th. Anything less is not an option. To be explicitly clear, Joe Biden will be our next president." He also condemned the mob that overran the Capitol, saying your actions were despicable and each of you, the rioters, vandals, and trespassers, should be prosecuted to the fullest extent. The state of Oklahoma is moving further into phase 2 of its vaccination plan. So who is now getting vaccinated there? Well, everyone in phase 1 is still able to get vaccinated, and those people include frontline healthcare workers, nursing home residents, and staff. And now in phase 2, more people are permitted to get vaccinations. They include healthcare workers who work outside of the hospital settings, first responders, adults ages 65 and older, and adults of any age with comorbidities.
Well, we knew that all of Oklahoma needed the vaccine and they wanted the vaccine, and as quickly as we were able to provide it, they signed up for it and made their appointments, and we were able to get it to them.
Next stage of phase 2 will bring in teachers and public health staff. Newton County, Missouri Sheriff's Office is getting new rifles, specifically 31 custom patrol rifles from Black Rain Ordnance Incorporated. That gun manufacturer, established in 2009, has local roots. The founders and core management team are from Neosho and the Newton County area.
We always like to keep everything local when possible. Like I said, these people here live here, they work here, and keeping the money and business in Newton County, especially when they gave us the best deal, is really a good deal, worked out well for all of us. But it feels very good to have an organization like this want to support us in our efforts.
Black Rain Ordnance says it's had a long relationship with Newton County area law enforcement. The company will also provide maintenance and training services. A Carthage, Missouri man dies in a wreck yesterday evening. 78-year-old James Robinson and 55-year-old Terry Abernathy were heading east on County Road 80 when they struck a vehicle parked in the roadway. Both were taken to the hospital where Abernathy was pronounced dead. Robinson suffered serious injuries. A Fort Scott, Kansas sailor killed in the attack at Pearl Harbor is coming home. Fireman 3rd Class William Barnett was 21 years old, stationed aboard the USS West Virginia on that fateful day in 1941. A torpedo attack killed 106 crewmen, including Barnett. But his remains and the remains of dozens of others were interred as unknowns at the National Cemetery of the Pacific in Hawaii. Investigators exhumed some remains for analysis, and Barnett was among those identified. On May 29th of this year, Navy Fireman 3rd Class William Barnett will be buried in his hometown of Fort Scott. Welcome home, Sailor Barnett. That's a look at our top news stories. Coming up this half hour in the KOAM Morning News, the COVID pandemic continues to wreak havoc and take more American lives. We'll have the latest on efforts to contain the virus. Plus, should President Trump be held responsible for the riot on Capitol Hill? We let you weigh in our Something to Talk About. But first, it's 6:37.
A quick check of our forecast before we hit another commercial break. As it's cold to start this morning out, and even with pockets of sun for today, we're holding on to partly to mostly cloudy skies, and that will keep us cold as the weekend gets going. 34 by the afternoon, to start the afternoon out rather. Then we'll see highs today topping out around 37. Quick look at tonight keeps us dry, but we'll see lows dropping back to 25 before we head back into the upper 30s on Saturday with thankfully more partly sunny skies. We're dry through the weekend, 41 on Monday, but a nice nice warm-up on the way, though, by the middle of next week. 52 on Tuesday and 60 on Wednesday. We'll be back after the break.
Nation Watch this morning as the world watched the attack on Capitol Hill in horror. The COVID pandemic on Wednesday claimed the lives of nearly 4,000 Americans. That's the most deaths we've seen in a single day since the start of the outbreak. John Vigliotti has more.
In Southern California, it has come to this. Hospitals on the verge of rationing care.
The hospital system is bent about as far as it can bend.
LA County's Methodist Hospital is so overwhelmed with COVID patients, it's now assembled a triage team that would ultimately decide the fate of those critically ill.
Unimaginable decisions that would have to be made to deny care to people who need it because there's not the resources available. We have not reached that stage. We're on a pace to get there.
This as more refrigerated shipping containers head to Southern California to store the dead. Tonight, a more infectious strain of the virus has now spread to at least 8 states. Officials confirming the first known cases in Texas, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut. So far, more than 5 million people have received the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. In an effort to speed up the rollout, Florida's governor has converted Miami's Hard Rock Stadium into a large-scale vaccination site, and local pharmacies in select states have begun receiving vaccines this week. Jonathan Vigliotti, CBS News.
Last night, the U.S. death toll topped 364,000. President-elect Biden announced Judge Merrick Garland as his pick for Attorney General. He also blamed President Trump for inciting the rioters who stormed the Capitol and accused authorities of treating the pro-Trump mob more leniently than anti-racism demonstrators who protested in Washington last year. That's a look at today's top national stories. Let's check back in with Nick for our Something to Talk About.
And it is quite a doozy of a talk about topic this morning, Tanya. It's all about President Trump. In the White House video, the president acknowledges the transfer of power to President-elect Joe Biden that will take place on January 20th, but he did not concede the election. Top Democrats are calling for the president's removal from office before then, either under the 25th Amendment or by impeachment in wake of the attack on the U.S. Capitol. So we did make that the subject of our Something to Talk About this morning. If we take Max Storm full, we thank you very much. We pin it right to the top of our Facebook page. If you look for KOAM News Now on our Facebook page, I will tell you, over 166 comments so far, and if we could pull up just a few here before we head to the Insta poll to check the results so far. Jim Armstrong saying the 25th Amendment needs to be invoked now. Jim thinks he has failed in all aspects of his duties, responsibilities, and actions, and has disgraced the office of the President of the United States. But Wayne, thank you, Wayne, for chiming in. He thinks no people make their own choice. You cannot control other people's actions. And we've got plenty of various opinions saying no and yes. So kind of a split opinion there on Facebook. And it seems to be that way for our KOAM News Now Insta poll as well. You can make your voice heard there at KOAMNewsNow.com/vote or by voting on the KOAM News Now app for Apple and Android. The same question here. Should President Trump be held responsible for the riot on Capitol Hill? And so far, 54% of you make that 57% of you say yes and 43% say no. As you vote, the numbers update live right before your very eyes, whether you vote on the site or see the results posted on the bottom of the screen. You can continue to chime in. We will continue to check in on these results as we continue during the next hour on the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. In the meantime, we'll be back with our four-state hero, birthdays and holidays for the weekend, and another look at the forecast when we come back.
We take this time to honor today's four-state hero, Josh Lawrence, who joined the United States Navy in 2000. He served aboard the USS George Washington and the USS Enterprise. His hometown, Erie, Kansas. We are proud to salute Josh Lawrence, our four-state hero.
All right, we have plenty of birthdays and anniversaries to get to, so we're just diving right in. First birthday out of Cherokee. Happy birthday to Brooks Boaz.
All right, and Jace Marbury is 7 strong this year. Look at him with that catch there up in Fort Scott. Happy birthday, Chase.
So is Kylan Allen. She's 7 strong. Happy birthday to you, Kylan, out of CJ.
Santa pick. I love it. Brody Allen is from Wyandotte. turning 7 years old as well. Happy birthday, Brody.
We continue on. Let's head to Chanute, Kansas. Season, hopefully got that last name right. Kidwell. Wonder what car he's in front of there. It's a nice pick, though. Happy 8th to you.
All right, Gannon Carson turning 9 years old this year. Look at sharp dress there with the tie. Liking that. Gannon and Gerard.
Absolutely looking sharp. Out of Fort Scott. Happy night to Quentin Ursick. Hope you're having a great one, Quentin.
All right, Gracie Jo Zook celebrating birthday number 10 this year. Gracie Jo is in Columbus.
Nice, nice. And then we'll head north up the road to Gerard. Aubrey Humble. Wow, great horseback rider there, turning 12 this year.
I wonder if she's competing, doing some barrel racing or something like that.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. All right. This one comes with love from the family to Emily Whalen, who's now 12 years old. Put a picture there of Emmy in Fairland. Happy birthday.
We move on to a late happy birthday to Avery Soper out of Columbus. He's 13, but he actually turned 13 on Monday. But nonetheless, happy 13th to you, Avery.
All right. And James Hutto celebrating birthday number 33 this year in Columbus.
And James, this is a nice birthday present from your wife, James Cullum, turning 66 out of Baxter.
All right. And let's see, Marcella Carter turning 83 years old this year. Happy birthday to Marcella in Columbus.
And we head back up to Chanute for Margaret Elliott's 89th birthday. You don't look 89 at all, Margaret. Hopefully you are enjoying your special day.
All right. In Columbus, Abby Nelson celebrating a birthday. Hope it's a great one, Abby.
And so is Lana Fortner out of Columbus. She's adding another candle to the cake this year. Happy birthday, Lana.
I think the party's in the bus this weekend. We've got a lot of Columbus birthdays.
Yeah.
Judy Meister, wishing you a happy birthday.
All right.
That's a great one.
Absolutely. Out of Carthage, our first anniversary on the list, we have Jim and Della French. Happy anniversary to you too.
All right. And Steve and Holly Engelbrecht in Miami. Congrats to you guys. Celebrating another year of wedded bliss.
We have some of our own, the Television City, having a birthday today. First up, Rye Addis, one of our great sales managers here. Happy birthday to you, Rye.
And our digital content producer, Miss Stacy Strader. Happy birthday, girl.
Absolutely, Strader. Happy birthday to you. We continue on. Shirley Glenn, wife of Melody Matinees, Virgil Glenn. Happy birthday to you, Miss Shirley. 80 years old today. We have Teresa Bellew out of beautiful Mulberry, celebrating another birthday this year. We want to wish happy birthday to Jan Becker out of Frontenac. Out of Columbus, Phoenix Wade, turning 15 this year. Happy birthday, Phoenix. And also a happy birthday to Dara Simpson.
All right, Mark Veenstra turning 43 years old this year. Bryce Bennett celebrating number 25 in Commerce. And, of course, we've got Jim French. Okay, so Jim and his wife Della celebrating an anniversary this weekend. But you know what? He was pretty smart. He ain't going to forget that anniversary because it's also his birthday, and they're in Carthage. Happy birthday. Happy anniversary. Cindy Proctor up in Fort Scott. Happy birthday to you.
That is it for our birthdays and anniversaries for this Friday and Saturday. If you want us to give you a birthday anniversary shout out, easy. Just send an email our way to birthdays@KOAMTV.com or head to KOAMNewsNow.com/birthdays. But that's not all, is there, Tanya?
Nope. You can be a part of the KOAM Birthday Club. All you have to do is go to our website and sign up. And once you do, you'll get special deals from local businesses. Go to KOAMNewsNow.com and sign up for the KOAM Birthday Club today.
Of course, I want to thank Derailed Commodity Flooring and Furniture for helping sponsor the KOAM Birthday Club. In the meantime, we've got a little bit of extra time, so let's focus on the weather once again before we head to another commercial break. It is nice to see the radar network completely dry compared to yesterday's rain and snow that we had to start the day out with. With that said, though, we are still dealing with cloud cover from yesterday, holding on this morning. But the overall big picture shows our upper low that gave us the rain and snow yesterday, working across the Tennessee Valley. A few upper lows skirting by for the weekend, but overall we're going to keep things dry as we finally get this weekend underway. Freeman Health System on the south side of Joplin, cloudy but quiet on this Friday morning, just before we hit the 7 o'clock hour. 31 in Joplin, a north breeze at 9 makes it feel like 23 degrees. Everyone else across the region starting mainly in the lower 30s around Joplin. A few upper 20s, though, for Fort Scott, Nevada, Stockton, and other areas close by. Overall, though, even though we're dry for today, we're going to hold on to some cloud cover, partly to mostly cloudy skies. We're going to take whatever sun we can get to try to warm things up throughout the day, but you see how cold it's going to stay throughout the day, though. 34 by noon, afternoon highs around 37. We'll see how the rest of the weekend and the 7 days shaping up when we come back. As for what's trending this morning, the buzz on Facebook, at least our Facebook page, is certainly something to talk about this morning. It's pinned right to the top of our page, and we're simply asking, following unrest on Capitol Hill Wednesday, some lawmakers are calling for the removal of President Trump from office, but we want to hear from you. Do you think President Trump should be held responsible for the riot on Capitol Hill? We want to hear from you also why or why not. You can chime in on our Facebook page and on the KOAM Insta poll. We'll check in on both of those as we continue talking about this on the KOAM Morning News and Fox 14. In the meantime, Tanya, how about a check on today's headlines?
That's right. Here's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door. An apparent burglary at a Miami, Oklahoma home ends with a man shot dead. Police received a call just after midnight this morning about a burglary in progress at the 900 block of B Street Northwest. The caller said he shot someone who broke into his home. EMS took the suspect to Integris Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. Police are still investigating and have not yet released any names. A Carthage, Missouri man dies in a wreck yesterday evening. 78-year-old James Robinson and 55-year-old Terry Abernathy were heading east on County Road 80 when they struck a vehicle parked in the roadway. Both were taken to the hospital, where Abernathy was pronounced dead. Robinson suffered serious injuries. The state of Oklahoma is moving further into phase 2 of its vaccination plan. Everyone in phase 1 is still able to get vaccinated. Those include frontline healthcare workers and nursing home residents and staff. This latest stage adds healthcare workers who work outside of hospital settings, first responders, adults ages 65 and older, and adults of any age with comorbidities. The next stage of phase 2 will bring in teachers and public health staff. Freeman Hospital is shining some light on one of its tools in the fight against COVID-19. It's called monoclonal antibody therapy. It's used in patients who are most at risk of becoming seriously ill, but must be used before they get sick. That's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door.
And as I promised, folks, the last check of the 7-day forecast, and again, better numbers on the board. We just have to get past a cold weekend. 37 today, upper 30s continue for your Saturday and Sunday with partly sunny to mostly cloudy skies. We're back in the lower 40s on Monday, pushing 52 on Tuesday, and look at Wednesday, looking good with highs back near 60.
Well, coming up today at noon, we're making a lighter tiramisu in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
We've been having some debate on whether you can call a light tiramisu an actual tiramisu. But we'll see the Mr. Foods spin on this on the noon KOAM News at noon, if I remember our show correctly. In the meantime, on the KOAM side, we're going to continue with CBS This Morning with Gail, Anthony, and Tony in a few minutes. But we're not done here just yet, are we, Tanya?
No, we're not. You can switch on over with us on Fox 14, where your only local morning news continues. And this morning, Jesse breaks down the 25th Amendment.
Yep, he'll have plenty of that coming up.
Jesse.
In the meantime, Jesse, no.
We can see him. I don't think he can hear us.
It's just the wonders of technology, but he will have some interesting things for us to talk about. You're trying your best, Jesse. We'll see you on Fox 14 in a few minutes. In the meantime, folks, we're going to have to wrap things up for now. We hope you have a great Friday and a great weekend. You'll see us back here on Monday morning.
And the rest of us, of course, we're going to see you here today at noon.